sun's already down. Makes me feel right. The sun's already down.
Well, evening everybody. Welcome to another Hi-Fi Club session. And I see Ingvar has joined us. So, Anthony, are you still there?
Yep.
Yes, yes, he is. Let me stop this. Stop this presentation. Right, off we go.
Great.
Okay.
Ingvar, before we get going, do you just want to give us a quick backwards countdown or something to check your sound?
Yeah, right. Does this work?
It
That's
works
perfect.
fine.
That's
Yeah, 100%.
okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll kick off. Good evening and welcome to another in the series of Talking Hi-Fi, presented by the Cape Town Hi-Fi Club.
Good
My name is
evening,
Anthony
friends.
Doman, and our guest tonight is loudspeaker designer Ingvar Ahlberg, who joins us from his home on the west coast of Sweden. It was a week before St. Valentine's Day 2014, at 11:20 at night. that Ingvar Ahlberg announced himself to South Africa. He titled his maiden post on avforums.coza, "Stupid Old Man with a Few Good Ideas." Now, it's a funny thing, but in South Africa, being stupid, old, and possessing only a few good ideas is clearly no barrier to popularity. The thread Ingvar started has grown to 16 pages and nearly 60,000 reads. He's contributed to countless others. Although most of his work has been done in the professional arena, he continues to channel his expertise into domestic sound, and he has a particular interest in high-efficiency speakers, which I'm sure we'll hear plenty about tonight. According to DIY Audio, Ingvar lists his interest as music, cars, guitars, family, single malt, and what he refers to as projects seemingly doomed to fail. But let's hear the man tell it in his own words. Ingvar, to start with, why don't you sketch out your background for us, where you come from, what got you into the world of audio, and so forth. Over to you.
Thank you, and good evening, all friends down south. Well, I was born just 30 kilometers north of here in a small town called Gothenburg, a suburb to Kungsbacka, 1957. And was sort of against my will dragged around in Sweden, ended up in Stockholm around 1965. Somewhere there, I was given a Philips tabletop radio, looking a bit like a small Fender Bassman, you know, beige textile cover. Was very good. Listened to Radio Luxembourg, of course, during the nights, and also at that time, late 60s, mid-late 60s, the Swedish radio started to have really good music shows, especially at night. This tabletop radio at age 9 for me suddenly got quiet. So I removed the back panel and found that one of the tubes didn't light up as the others. Together with the radio, I was also given a small wooden cabinet with tubes. So I found one that was the same size, had the same number, 9 pins. So I replaced that instead of the not lighting up one. This one lighted up very good, very bright, and for a very short time. So I realized that if you're going to do this, you better learn. So I went to the library, borrowed the Philips Tube Handbook, also found this book by a German man named H.H. Klinger, Built for Hi-Fi Sound.
Mm-hmm.
That started it. I learned to replace tubes, meaning read what the tube is called and choose one that's called just the same and replace with that. But then there was this book with speaker drawings and a lot of theories, and actually very, very funny, well-written book.
I'm on a Zoom meet here. Listen, look at this guy. He's the Swedish guy that
and
I think you're. Whoops, sorry, guys.
and this led me to start to experiment with speakers. Around that time, you could dismantle a lot of old radios and use the drivers and try to build stuff. Most of it was pure rubbish. But then I found 2 Philips AD9710 full range drivers and built a Voigt pipe, tapered
I
quarter
just
wave tube.
interrupt you for a moment, Ingvar. I can just hear a chorus of sobs breaking out all over the country, if not the world.
Yeah, but that was a revelation, actually. So at the same time, around age 13, I built my first amp, because I also found the Texas Instruments transistor handbook at the library. Swedish libraries were very good at that time. The amp was very simple, and as I didn't know how to make a printed circuit board, I made it hardwired. And to be able to get it all right, I sort of mounted the components mechanically, just exactly like in the schematic. And it worked. It was not a very good amplifier, but it worked. So that sort of directed me forward in my roots of education. So yes, I have built, designed, and manufactured speakers for many years, mainly as mentioned for the Pro market. But I am actually in the background, I'm an electronics engineer, designer. So my life has actually been spent more in the electronics world than in the speaker world. But the speaker world has always been more important. That's what I love. And there has been some very, very bad ventures. Some rather nice. So
Ingvar, when you say very bad ventures, do you mean from yourself or from others?
no, from me. I mean from me. So some things ended up really, really bad. Didn't think right. Didn't work as I thought. Especially actually the times I went the wrong way. Low efficiency, damping out, trying to be very orderly, transmission lines. It never went well. It always was bad. I mean, really bad.
When you say bad, why is that? What was it? How was it impacting negatively on what you wanted to achieve?
It was boring to listen to.
Ah.
It was really boring to listen to. Maybe it measured good, I don't know, but it was boring to listen to. While the first Schmack's horns I built surely measured very bad, but it was fun to listen to. It's engaging, it's dynamic, it's lifelike. You're there, or you're not there, but it's lifelike. It presents music in a believable way, I think.
In discussing what effect the speaker has and how it interacts with the music and the listener, is it that the speakers are the interface to the music, or are they instead a barrier to the music? How important is the speaker in relation to the other elements of the reproducing chain?
As the speaker, and in my case, as I only listen to LPs, the two most important parts, I think, is the cartridge and what it's attached to, of course, and the speakers, because they are electrodynamical. That's much more complicated in its way, in the way it works, than pure electronics. There's so much, and in a speaker, there's so much that needs to work out well together. The design, the cabinet, the drivers, the room where you put it, the room and the speaker, the interaction of that is extremely important. But I would say the speakers are more or less the parts of your replay system that exhibits the biggest differences. So the speakers are more than anything else in your replay system a matter of taste. I would never call, oh yes, but not when anyone hears me, but I wouldn't call any kind of speakers bad. But I could say I don't like them, I don't enjoy them. I could find very, very simple, very cheap speakers that most people could consider bad design or whatever, but I enjoy listening to them. I enjoy the way they play music to me.
And what kinds of speakers would those be? Is it a particular type?
No, it could actually. I mean, there are old, very low efficiency speakers that I really did enjoy. Actually, I bought me a new pair of AR MSTs a few weeks ago, just for nostalgic reasons. They're exactly the opposite, or it's just downright wrong from my point of view. No efficiency whatsoever. They have got a sensitivity of, I think, 84 dBs.
Mm-hmm.
Mean load on the amp, needs tremendous lot of power, but can take that very much power. But when you get it to sing along, it's nice. But what I like the most, I have very soon actually to choose my last route in speakers for what I'm going to use here at home. Those that I use now, I've used since 2013. They're very good, but they'll move on to a guest room. So I'll need to have something new. And that will be full range driver in horn or tapered quarter-wave tube. Then I'll settle down. I will not build anything more for myself, because the full range driver systems that work decently well, they don't do everything right, but what they do is best. It's perfect to my ears.
Is there a way that we could apply this to, let's say, the average listener, any listener? You know, how do we then design something that will appeal to more people?
I don't know if that, I don't know if that is really possible, because we don't know, I don't know what you hear, I don't know what my wife hear. I do know quite well what my son hear, because we think more or less the same all the time. We like same kind. His music makes a lot more noise than my music, but otherwise we think more or less the same regarding turntables,
Mm-hmm.
amps, speakers, and so forth. But we are physically very alike. We look exactly the same almost, because he's a lot younger, of course, but I think, I mean, just the stupid fingers behind the ears tricks when you listen to music. You just twist your head, just move a couple of pillows, everything sounds different. I haven't got the slightest clue of how a guitar actually sounds. Just what I think it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
So how would I be able to make something that suits everybody? I have found out that especially in the proof field, reasonably well designed, ported speakers, decent sensitivity, and sort of not polished, not boring, but always X over frequency outside the voice range. Nobody gets offended by speakers like that. As soon as you have, in my opinion, you have a crossover frequency within the voice band, that is 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz. It's very, very easy to get nastiness if you play loud or if you stress the speakers. In a professional environment, and even in environments where you don't play that very loud, like restaurants, bars, pubs, you use a lot of speakers often. You connect a combination of series and parallel. You get nasty impedance loads for the amplifiers. You produce distortion, even if you don't play that loud. This still works as long as you have decent efficiency and keep crossover frequency outside the voice range. That's just my experience, just in that environment. But designing something that would suit everyone, I don't know who could do that.
Okay, well, but if we take it as a given from the expert that there is no one size fits all, it brings me to my question, that is, do we as listeners really want accuracy or fidelity? And you know, given that the title of this talk is, excuse me, Talking Hi-Fi, and it's the Cape Town Hi-Fi Club.
Yes.
Do we want that fidelity, or do we instead want a sound that we like? Is that what we should be chasing?
I don't think we. I don't know. When I used to have a high. That high end wasn't invented back then, but I used to have a hi-fi shop in Stockholm in the late 70s. We were the first to sell Mark Levinson, etc., in Stockholm. And we got the opera as a customer, the Royal Swedish Opera in Stockholm. And then I found out that very many of those very fine musicians didn't, to me, have the slightest idea of how an orchestra sounded. And that's not that strange, because they sit in the midst of the orchestra. It doesn't sound that way 14 rows back in the opera as it does in the midst of the orchestra. But a few of them I helped setting up their systems at home. And I realized that they wanted more aggressive and a lot bassier sound than most other customers, because that was how it sounded where they played. Second row violins, there's a lot of noise where he sits and plays. So when listening at home, he wanted that kind of sound. So while it would be easy to think that a violinist in a grand orchestra would want something very smooth, the way we often regard classical or art music, very sophisticated. He wanted something totally different because that's what his reality was. So I don't think we want, or maybe someone wants the reality in sound, the fact, but as we don't know the fact, when do we know we're there? When do we know we replay exactly what it sounds like, as we don't know what it sounds like?
And you've touched on quite an important point there, and which brings me to, we were discussing music a moment ago. It brings me to a question about the music and your involvement with it. Do you actually play an instrument yourself, and what is it? And do you have a favorite brand or model, and why?
Well, when no one's hearing me, I do play the guitar once in a while. The reason I never actually got into one of the bands my youth friends started is that I was too bad playing the guitar. But yes, I have a couple of favorite brands, this is a bit strange actually, as I'm very, very much into country Americana music, where Telecasters, Fender Telecasters are one of the three corner legs. But actually my two favorite brands of guitars are Ibanez. That started when our son was 13, and I bought him his first real guitar, an Ibanez Lone Star Red. Still hangs here, he hasn't brought it with him. Magical guitar, simple Western guitar, but sings in a way that many very expensive guitars, to my ears, never approaches. And then I'm actually more into the Fender, no, the Gibson sound than the Fender sound, except of course when it comes to country. Mm-hmm. And then there is the unobtainable, a Martin N20, the one that Willie plays on. That's unobtainable, but I would want one. I couldn't play it, but I would want one.
And with regard to the music itself, you mentioned country. That's your musical genre of choice? Because I do, for those who don't know, and I'm sure most of our viewers this evening are aware that you have an outlet in a very popular and very long-running series on the AV forums called In the Shade of My Stetson. I think yes. That kind of tells us where you're coming from musically speaking. So tell us about your musical taste and what makes a performance or an artist special for you.
That has, of course, as anything else, been a long and rather winding road. In the 60s, 70s, it was the rock and roll pop scene from that time that guided me along. Found strange artists. I've always been interested in that. That's a bit on the side of the mainstream. And I actually found country back then in Johnny Cash, but in 68, listening to Johnny Cash, that was not what you did at my age. So I did that in private. That was for old folks, or it was not, at least for us, but I did do it in secrecy. But actually, I still listen to actually all over the palette. I don't listen very much to classical music anymore. I think it often takes too much time. And also I very seldom find that classical music has something to say to me. I can find it very beautiful. I can find it very dramatic. But today, what means the most to me, that is actually that the music has something to say to me. And that means it's a combination of the music, the melody, the song, and the lyrics. And that's why I'm so stuck in the Americana. And that's not only, it's not the country, but it's this amazing, never-ending mass of music from the music belt that covers the southern USA from Florida to California. There's an immense amount of music. There's so much new music that there is no time for me to buy all the new records I need. I can't, there's no time to buy it all. But the music needs to talk to me.
That's a pretty deep explanation of what turns you on musically speaking, and certainly gives one food for thought. Now, you start with the source, which is that great performance, that deep, that profound piece of music or performer. What do you play it on? What's your setup like at home?
Well, since a few weeks, the turntable got replaced, or well, this is an ongoing situation. But the old Sony TTS 3000, it's built in '68, and it's already time for its first service. So I can't understand why they can't make things that last. Mm. So that's replaced with Micro DDX 1000. Also an old player. This one was, I think, produced '88. Presently using Fidelity Research FR24 ARM, and then there is a bunch of cartridges that I switch between. Presently there is Denon DL103S on it. The preamp is a gas Thedra, and the power amp is a Mark Levinson ML11, the last amplifier Tom Colangelo designed before his death in a car accident. And the speakers are a pair of HAD Susanna. So it's the youngest part of the setup. That would be the Mark Levinson. It's quite new. It's made '82. So then there is, I have equipment everywhere, too much, but there are things that I just couldn't let them go. I need to have them.
I think there's just one thing you've left out so far. It's the, so what is your favorite Spotify playlist? Oh, I guess there isn't one, yeah.
Actually, there is a Spotify playlist that's called In the Shade of My Stetson.
Ah, of course. Of course, of course.
To find that and other strange playlists, you have to, in Spotify, search on h.a.d. Then you find a few strange playlists, several hours long, all of them. They are very much into the kind of music I spoke about the music that talks to me.
Okay, and you first said that your end stage speaker, the one that you're working on, the one that's going to be, the speaker that'll drive you to eternity for the next 50 years or so. What is it replacing? You've mentioned the make and model, obviously, that's one of your own. And
Yes.
maybe we'll talk a bit about HAD, but would you describe the speaker that you're using at the moment?
The Susanna, HAD Susanna is that ended my latest venture into lower or more normal efficiency design types, which was initiated by friends who wanted me to make them smaller speakers, high efficiency speakers. If you want at least some kind of LF extension, tends to be large. So I found a driver manufacturer from Israel, Morel. They used to manufacture the drivers for Dynaudio until there was some kind of breakup between those two companies. Extremely high quality handmade drivers. So this is rather small, ported twin slit ports with two 6.5-inch LF drivers, crossed over at 3K to a Mondorf air motion transformer. Air motion transformer is actually my favorite kind of HF driver, together with good compression drivers, of course. This is a fairly low efficiency design. It's some say around 92 dB system sensitivity. Main load 2 ohms or 4 ohms, but the Mark Levinson likes that, so that's not a problem here. They can actually go quite loud. I still think they're a bit boring when I play really soft.
Mm-hmm.
That was, oops. So, lost those. Put them back.
We hear you, we see you.
Yeah, right. I have never found any low efficiency, low sensitivity speaker that is really engaging when you play soft. While for instance, the most stupid speaker I ever built, from a practical point of view, the HAD Mock, which was a 118 kilo monster. That was the empty cabinet, was 180 kilos each, containing one 21-inch Bema LF driver that was used just up to 100 hertz. On top of that, a strange box. I built it all together. I should, of course, have built it in 2 pieces, but I built it all together. On top of that was a short rear-loaded horn with Bema 10G40 in a rear-loaded horn, together with a Bema TPL 150 air motion transformer. System sensitivity around 102, 103 dB. And those monsters with, 21-inch is a big LF driver. But they could move there. They could move the furniture in here.
But it must have had a WAF of about minus 10,000.
Pardon?
It must have had a WAF of about minus 10,000.
The thing was that playing really soft. John and Britt-Marie had went to bed. So I just played so you barely heard it, but it still was alive.
Mhm.
It was so easy. It was a flowing. So I mean, there was still bass when I had a level down to below 70 dB. There was still all bass there. That never happens on a low efficiency system. It's sort of just it dies. But playing loud on those speakers, very fun. But playing soft, no, doesn't work. So that's why I'm reverting for the final build to high efficiency. And this time without crossovers.
Just by the way, for those who may be interested in posing their own questions, just a reminder, I know I didn't mention this at the outset, but we normally take questions use the chat facility and just put up your questions and we'll ask them on your behalf. And of course, later on, there'll be an opportunity, if Ingvar is willing, to have a chat yourself with Ingvar. I did want to know, by the way, Ingvar, do you often listen alone or with friends or your partner?
Mostly alone, I think, but sometimes with friends and a whiskey or a bottle of wine but
Cape Red.
Yes, Cape Red, and sometimes with my wife, we share a lot of the music interest actually, because she also likes, especially real country music, not the modern list country type, but real country. She used to dance line dance for many years. Actually has 2 gold medals in the Swedish line dance championships. So that part of the music is our common ground. So that we do listen to together. But actually when I really do listen, that I mostly do alone. I think to really listen, to really concentrate on what I hear and listen to the message, that works best alone for me.
Okay, let me just get this out the way. You mentioned horns. You touched on them briefly in the last few minutes in talking about the design of your current speaker, the Susanna. Where do you stand on horns as a concept, though, for an overall speaker system? You there?
Yeah, I think I don't think there is any real concept that is superior. I think it's all a matter of the execution.
Mm.
And then I think that there are types of designs that, to me, are easier to make with satisfying result. Speakers are so subjective. I mean, there are no truths. Okay, a 21-inch LF driver is bigger than a 12-inch driver. That's a truth. That we could agree on that, but there are not many other truths regarding speakers, because it's all a matter of taste. And that's actually something that I, during my years, have found to be the bad side of this industry. And that is, there are so many very gifted people, good designers, whatever, but who mistake their opinions for the truth, for the fact. Because there are no such things. There are no such things as good speakers.
Are they
Universally.
bad? Is there such a thing as a bad speaker?
Pardon?
Is there such a thing as a bad speaker?
Not as long as it's working. If it's broken, it's bad. But if it's working, no, not on a universal level. I mean, I won't mention any makes, but there are people who love speakers I would put in the garbage bin.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are people who would put my speakers in the garbage bin. So I think it's important to realize that it's all down to your personal, what you like. It's a matter of taste, and this or that isn't good or bad, but this or that you like or dislike. And realize that it's your opinion, not facts.
Okay, now we have a couple of questions that have come in via the chat line, so I'm going to throw you, they're not curveballs, they're fairly straightforward. First of all is Eitan, and he says, hi Ingvar, nice to meet you, as I'm sure that all of us share that sentiment. I found your audio opinions fascinating. My question is, can one achieve a pleasing result by DIYing high efficiency, full range driver speakers with low cost parts?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, SA should be full of Philips 97.7s. And it should be. I mean, there is a longer relationship between Philips and South Africa. So they should be all over the place. And then there are modern, cheap, full range drivers of the same type. You won't get an extremely high efficiency system with a pair of 9710s or so, but you will get that kind of functionality. This thing with high efficiency actually maybe should be lighted a little bit, because we often say high efficiency, and then we talk about the speaker's sensitivity, which are two ends of the same thing. But if we try to look at the figures, say for instance, a standard, typical British style quality hi-fi speaker where you have a sensitivity of say 86, 87 dB, that converts to efficiency of less than 1%. Meaning that if you send in 100 watts of power in that, less than 1 watt becomes acoustical energy. The rest is heat in the voice coil. If we walk the other route, say like Johan's Agaton Sachs little system, that is more or less 112 dB system efficiency. That is as close to 100% you come. 112 dB sensitivity equals 99, almost 99% efficiency. So if he puts in 100 watts, he couldn't remain in the house if he did that, but he doesn't convert almost nothing into heat in the voice coils. And that's an important aspect. Not that important at home, but in a professional environment, when you put in a lot of power, you very, very soon get thermal compression, because heat in the voice coil generates compression. And when you reach 3 dB compression, say an 88 dB sensitivity speakers, you would approach 3 dB compression probably before 100 dB output. Meaning if you double the input once more, it doesn't get louder.
Mhm.
You just lift the floor, 3 dB. But if you have more or less perfect efficiency, like in a big horn system, there's always room to raise the roof without diminishing the dynamics. There is still room to lift the level. Has no meaning at a domestic situation, of course, but the high efficiency is somewhat smarter. You don't burn it up in heat in the voice coil. So a very, very simple way to build a high efficiency system for low cost is there's a lot of modern, high quality, full range drivers in a smaller size. 4 or 5 inches full rangers in a tall tapered quarter wave tube. You're soon far above 100 dB efficiency. You won't get 30 hertz out of them, but you will get 50.
Mhm.
And you will get 50 in high quality, and you will have a system efficiency of, say, 104 dB. That's quite interesting, and you could build that for more or less no money. So yes, you can build high efficiency system for very, very modest costs.
And high efficiency that at the same time doesn't give you the extension, which is a given, but what it does do well, I think if I understand you saying, it does that very, very well.
Oh yes, and if you want really good LF extension, then it's big. Then it's very big.
Mm-hmm.
But the fundamental, the low B on a bass guitar is 60 hertz.
Sure.
So the synthesizers and organs produce lower frequencies, and so does a timpani and the bass drum occasionally, but there is not much music below 60 hertz.
Okay, and now we're going to just jump onto another question from the chat line. I think that is related because it's also about a design approach. And the question is from Felix, and it is, what do you think about open baffle speakers?
Amazingly fun, fantastically fun. But I like the projects, and there's commercial ones, of course, also with multiple electrodynamical drivers in a big wall. It's amazing. And when you get a real open baffle, big open baffle system, you also create a line field source, meaning that the output level drops linearly when you move away from the speaker. Not logarithmically. A point source speakers. If you move 1 meter, say it drops 3 dB. If you move 1 meter more, it has dropped 6 dB. A planar source or line source speakers drop linearly. So you get the sound pressure, you get the level far more even. It reaches longer and it can sound fantastically good. If you mean the more, say, more domestically designed open baffle.
Yeah, but and surely there must be trade-offs though. It's not all good news.
They're in the LF department, you have, of course, the feedback, the acoustical feedback around the baffle. There are solutions to that makes it sort of a mix-up between an open baffle and an open box. You know, the folded baffles and such, to make it the feedback way longer, putting it lower in frequency. But all in all, I think it's a very good idea, and you get rid of all the problems with boxes, resonances, standing waves. You get rid of a lot of problems. The resonances, I think, is not that much of a problem. I think they should be used instead, like in a horn. But that's another story. But no, I think open baffles is a very good idea, and I have heard very, very good open baffle systems. All of them home built, of course.
Okay, now we're moving up the line upstream. We have a question from Martin, and he'd like to know more about amplifiers. Have any South African, and also have any South African products other than red wine crossed your path? Think about it. But while you're thinking about it, I'm going to ask you another one.
Yeah, it might be so. I'm not really sure about this, but somewhere back in my head, in the late 70s, there was a magic speaker called DCM Time Windows.
How did I know you were going to say that?
I think that originated in South Africa, didn't it?
Well, I'm sure that there are plenty of experts who have some insights into that, but I think there's a grain of truth there somewhere.
But I never owned, but I've heard or listened to other South African products, except very, very good red wine. I'm not really
I'll drink
sure.
to that.
Yeah, actually, probably there is a lot of products that has passed through my life that originate in South Africa. Sweden and South Africa has a very, very long trade tradition.
Indeed, we do. But while you take that drink break, referring to the shelf behind you, take it those are not legal volumes. What do you like about LPs versus the other stuff? You know, that stuff with the ones and the zeros.
I don't listen to digital sources for listening to music. I use digital sources for finding music. Today, mainly the computer, of course. Then there was a time when it was very hard to buy LPs. So of course I have had to buy a lot of CDs. I've never used some kind of music server or downloaded or something like that. But I've always I want to buy the hardware, or I want to buy the software in a hard way. I want to pay for it and I want to own it. But I have removed CD players from home. CD player is only used today as a source in the workshop. And the CD records remains, at least until I can find those that I never could find on LP. When I can find them on LP, I could get rid of the CDs, but they remain so far.
Okay. There's something that you referred to briefly earlier, and I know there's at least one of our participants or viewers this evening who would be interested in your views on what I'm going to ask you now.
Yeah.
About crossovers, and you mentioned printed circuit boards, and I do recall that you are very much a fan of point-to-point, and so if you can talk about that a bit as far as it affects crossovers specifically in speakers. And then also about your boutique caps and the like in speakers. You know, what's your thinking on that?
I prefer point-to-point. I think that I don't think this thing with speaker wires or wires at all are that important, as long as they're long enough from point A to point B.
Always important.
Yes, very important actually. Improves current transfer.
Oh, yes.
But I like things executed the simplest possible way without being stupidly simple. So in crossover networks, I prefer point-to-point wiring, or I used to always build with silvered copper wire as, you know, connecting points, gluing the components on the board, and just solder straight to the connector wires. There are differences between both coils and caps. I think you should use decent quality. Say Mundorf, that is okay. That may be a boutique name, but that's not very expensive, at least in Sweden. But then there is a range, of course. You should not buy those that have AG or AU printed somewhere, indicating that there is some silver or gold involved. There's no reason for doing that. But decent quality plastic capacitors, use that. It's not expensive. Do not use electrolytics in crossover networks. I don't think that's a good idea. That could be based actually on a bit of fact too, because the dissipation factor even in a very good electrolytic is horribly bad, as opposed to even the cheapest plastic capacitor.
But what do you know? You're only a stupid old man with a few good ideas.
Yeah, the stupid, there's many that agrees actually, so that, and old too.
Speaking about old, somebody's come up with a question. That's Jason Willems. So thanks, Jason. Regarding, well, it needn't necessarily be old, I guess. It could be modern as well. You're a turntable fan, so do you like or prefer, you know, something that is high efficiency? Oh, sorry, I'm just getting the question all wrong. Do you prefer light, rigid plinths, or do you like the old battleship type, heavy artillery type turntable? And then, just by the way, we had a question earlier. Could you just repeat the name of the turntables that you were using?
I use one Sony TTS 3000,
Okay.
a studio turntable Sony developed. It was the first quartz controlled turntable in the world, actually, designed in 65 or 66, and produced until 69. And that's already due for service, first service. And then I used the Microseiki DDX1000. It's that strange looking stuff up there. And both of those are rigid plinths. The Sony has more or less no damping anywhere. The Micro has quite cleverly designed damping feet on the outriggers, and a very solid decast chassis. So that's, despite its looks, it's very immune to feedback, both airborne and mechanical. But as everyone else, I started with the floating chassis. I mean, I still think ARXA-XB, Thorens TD150 are fantastic turntables, and those are still available cheap, and you can make a fantastic turntable with a bit of homework on a Thorens TD150. Fantastic turntable. And it's one of the easiest turntables in the world to mount any arm you want to. Very easy to make a new arm board. It's just a rectangular piece of wood. It's very, very simple. So that, I think, those should be, you should be able to find them in abundance for less than 1K rand, I think. And converting that to a fantastic turntable could be very cheap.
Well, my friend, I think we need to have a bit of a discussion in economics, because clearly the guys in South Africa did not get that memo. They have a different view on this. It may be COVID, who knows? At any rate, I think I'm going to start winding down now. We've probably run a little bit over time, but hey, why not? We're all enjoying ourselves. I think I certainly am. So Ingvar, as a final question from me this evening then, and once I've done, I'm sure there'll be others who want to stick around maybe and shoot the breeze with you. I don't know. You've come a long way. Like me, you're also a 1957 model.
Yeah.
And so what still makes you get up out of bed to do what you do? What motivates or inspires you still?
As I'm still so involved in work outside the audio community, and today I'm a full-time hired consultant for a rather big Swedish company since since 2015, and I work as a technical analyst, and also work with customer support, technical support, and also technical sales support when introducing new customers to our hardware and software systems. So actually, in my age, I wake very early, so that it's very good to have something fun to go do for a few hours every day. And I have a very, very hard time imagining pension. that would just end up with me smoking and drinking Cape Red from 8 in the morning all day. That doesn't work in the long run.
Oh boy. Ingvar, it's been an absolute pleasure and a no small privilege to have spent this time with you. As I said, if you're willing, we probably want some other people here would want to have a bit of a chat as well.
No problem.
But yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you to you, first of all. And then secondly, thanks to Cape Town Hi-Fi Club for making the evening possible. Do consider becoming a member. That's just the sponsor's message. And yeah, to the participants, the viewers, thank you guys for joining us. Yeah, I sign off once again, and we look forward to the next in the series. We're keeping it under wraps, but rest assured it's going to be fascinating, and we look forward to it and hope to see you there again. Thanks very much. And that's it, signing out from me, but over to, and we're going to, I think, unmute everybody, and it's over to you. You have the floor, all of you.
Thank you.
Ask any questions you like.
Okay, Anthony, thanks very much. And
Yeah,
thanks,
thank you.
And thank you again for supplying me those SDK amplifiers 3 years ago.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you for the fascinating talk.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
If I may just add, by the way, we have a message here that I think kind of says it for all of us, from somebody who I think knows a thing or two about speakers. And this is from Roy Sonor to everyone. It's thank you, Ingvar, for talking about music before hi-fi. Wonderful to hear wisdom instead of sales talk. Your passion is motivating. Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ingvar. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ingvar. Thank you. Lance, nice to meet you.
Hello. Yeah, the same. The same.
Anybody have a question? Just fire away.
I have just a related question. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure, Chris.
I read some of Ingvar's under my my Stetson. He's talk about the music and the stuff, and often you introduce it by setting the scene. You know, it was a rainy night. It was this. It was that. Am I reading it incorrectly, or were you actually present at some of those concerts? Or are you setting up the scene by adding a bit of prose in the beginning?
You mean in the shade of my Stetson? Long,
Yes.
That's
long
right.
story. Yes, I was at many of those. I wasn't at the Smiling Dog Saloon in 68, I think. No, I wasn't there, but many of the live stuff mentioned in that very long and winding thread is from that I once was there.
Okay, great. Just wanted to know. He didn't disbelieve you. It's just fascinating to know that.
Live music is that's the source of everything, sort of.
Okay.
Well, speak about live music. There we have some, clearly.
Yeah, right.
And we were there. It was a dark and stormy night. Guys, yeah, unless there are any further questions, I think we can call it a wrap. Let's have another whip round. Any takers?
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Hi.
thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, it was
Thanks, gents. Enjoyed it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ingvar. Very good to
Thank
meet you. And thank you, Cape Town Hi-Fi Club. Thank you all.
Fine.
Thank you.
We'll put the video recording on YouTube tomorrow. You can watch it all over again. Okay. Bye then.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye.
very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Good night.